In this month's market update, we are going to summarize the highest highs, the lowest lows, and everything in between of 2025.
We'll also discuss the December Fed update and how markets are reacting.
2026 is right around the corner. What do the forecasts hold, and what do the predictions show?
All that and more on this month's market update. Welcome to this month's market update. We encourage you guys to click like and subscribe and stay up to date with us here on our market updates. I'm here again with our lovely host, Gabi. How are you today?
I'm really, really well. It's great to be back. And this was certainly a month that had anticipation in regards to the Fed meeting that finally did take place.
Absolutely. So we're going to be talking about three things today, right? We're going to go through recap of 2025. We're going to talk about that Fed meeting, and then we're going to do our projections for next year, see what 2026 is going to look like.
Let's dive in.
All right, so just recapping our data for 2025, we think we're going to come in around 4.1 million home sales, so right about where we were last year. 2% on prices, so things have slowed down. We've seen inventory increase quite a bit. I think right now we're up about 25% in terms of listings. We've been in the kind of mid 4-month supply range all this year, so we'll probably wind up right around there, 4.5, 4.6. Really kind of like moved into a more balanced market. From an agent's perspective this year, what do you think things looked like, Gabi?
It's felt like the speed of molasses. Certainly, agents have hoped for rate cuts to be able to encourage buyers to make moves, and between tighter inventories in some parts of the country and interest rates that have not motivated the buyers that might be able to afford making a move, it's been the continuation of a tale of several different markets.
Yeah, I mean, you really hit on it. We've had kind of a tale of two markets in a way, right? The Northeast this year, while it has eased some, it's still tighter inventory than the rest of the country, higher price increases, so a bit of a different market than looking at the average, right? Because, it's sort of like, what's the national weather, right? We're seeing a lot of different markets right now. Certainly there are some that resemble the kind of median case, but in a lot of instances, you've got the Northeast with lower inventory, higher price increases, and you've got the South with much higher inventory, and even price depreciation in quite a few markets. So, I mean, what are some of the strategies you've heard or seen dealing with one market versus the other? Kind of like, what do you think was the theme, I guess, this year for some of these agents in terms of their conversations?
It was that underlying current of lack of affordability, right? And we know through the NAR study that was released this year that the first-time homebuyer age is almost close to 40 years old now. That hasn't changed, and and those who are moving up are also significantly older. And those tend to be those who have stayed in inventory, right, in those houses. The sellers that we thought that were going to hit the market didn't hit because they had low interest rates that they enjoyed, and they were unwilling to trade them for higher interest rates. The strategies have remained that if you are working with a buyer, that you want to be really clear on what their motivation is in terms of their monthly payments, right? Because we have to move away from just talking about the volume or a certain area, but help our buyers get really clear on the payments that they're willing to make in light of a lack of interest rates that are moving. On the list side, it was all about identifying the sellers that were willing to make a move because of that potential job change or because something else may have been different in their life. Yet, unless we were working with the highly motivated and we're really, really clear on helping them strategically position themselves to either get the house of their dreams or to be able to win the beauty pageant if we are working with sellers to make sure that the price and that the condition are the very best among the competition, it was tough to make moves, and we saw that in the data.
Yeah, I mean, so affordability, again, it's been a couple of years now we've been talking about this. We didn't see rates really do any downward movement till we started getting to your Q4, right? So tough conversations on both sides. A lot of buyers that are struggling with affordability. And then on the listing side, the difference, I guess, for me that I saw between this year and last year, right, was that we did see more listings. But it was also, I think, a lot of tough conversations on listings, right, about pricing, because pricing in 2025 was a lot different than pricing in 2022. That's an important strategy when you're, especially in the markets that we did see, like places in Texas, Gulf Coast, parts of Florida, where prices were going backwards year over year in a lot of places. Like those tough conversations were new, right? That's something a lot of agents, I think, haven't dealt with much in their careers unless they've been around for at least 15 years. Yep. And I think that's kind of where the big themes for the most part was affordability challenges and dealing with this sort of increase in inventory, but also setting sellers' expectations, right?
Absolutely. And especially on the seller side in parts of the country like the Southeast, it was important to have the right strategic conversations, whether or not you were positioning your seller to understand what they actually have to do to have a strong marketing program to position their property to win the beauty pageant, as we like to say, or going back to the concessions, right? If we have sellers in an area of the country that are competing with new construction homes, that it was important that sellers understood what concessions mean when they were getting ready to sell a retail home that was not a new construction, and what they could do to incentivize buyers to find their property first.
Speaking of strategic conversations, we had a Fed meeting.
Much anticipated.
Right. And it was kind of interesting because, we talked in the last episode about the fact that it was a little bit of a toss-up whether we were going to get a rate cut this month or not. But shortly after we filmed it, it started becoming clearer and clearer that we would get a rate cut, which is what transpired. We got another quarter-point cut from the Fed. Important note, I think, that we always like to make is that the rate the Fed is cutting is not our 30-year mortgage rate, right?
Yeah.
They're essentially cutting a very short-term rate that essentially how banks lend money to each other, how bank reserves moves around. It's a little bit wonky, but in the end, what they're impacting are short-term interest rates.
Like
right?
Car loans, like student loans, other types of short-term loans, not the mortgages though.
Yeah, some commercial loans, some business loans are based off of the Fed funds rate, things like that. But in the end, it's these shorter-term loans. When you look at these longer-term loans, we talk about 10-year treasuries. And we talked last time about the fact that we didn't expect to see a ton of movement in the mortgage rate even when we did get this Fed announcement. And sure enough, they're still sitting at 6.35%, which is where they were when we sat down last time. The interesting thing about that meeting was more the tone. We've seen them strike what we call a more hawkish tone, which is to say a little more cautious around lowering interest rates. So they're essentially saying we may be less likely in the near future to lower interest rates. And right now, when I was looking at it, markets have the probability of them lowering rates at the next Fed meeting at only about 25%. So we're coming off of what was a little bit of a downward trend and the short-term rate, which did translate to somewhat lower mortgage rates. We came off of our highs. We were hitting close to 7%, right, at one point this year, and we came down to, I think we got down to like 6.15 at one point, and since then we've kind of just been trending around at like 6.35%. So, long story short, probably not going to be a ton of movement in that ballpark in the near future. So,
yet what's causing this hawkish tone that you're mentioning?
Number one being that there's still evidence of inflation. Mm-hmm. So they want to be very cautious around that. They made it clear that they're still seeing it mostly in goods subject to tariffs, which is actually, in a way, good news in the sense that they know what's causing it, and they believe that that trend is likely temporary, but they also want to be cautious to ensure that that's what's going on and wait for those prices to start to really stabilize before they start lowering rates again. On the other side of that, they are watching employment. So, what's driven the most recent decreases has been weakness in the labor market. They still see that there. When we're actually waiting on some data, a little bit after this filming, we're going to get more data that's going to come out on unemployment, things like that. But they went into this meeting with essentially a shortage of data on the labor market. So nothing they had showed enough weakness for them to strike a more dovish tone, as we say, to basically lay out that they were likely going to lower rates more next year. Mm-hmm. So, as we head into next year, and we'll get into the recaps or the forecasts and stuff, we're essentially going into an environment with what we call a more hawkish Fed, so less potential for rate cuts as we go into next year. Probably we'll see fewer rate cuts next year than we did this year, barring some substantial changes in either inflation data or employment data.
Well, let's dive into some of the forecasts that we have based on the data going into 2026.
Yeah, so we'll start with the big one, home sales. Right now, our forecasts for next year are putting it really, we'll have a range. So we'll say between 4.25 and 4.5. Mm-hmm. So essentially pushing toward a 10% increase, but really most likely somewhere between 5 and 10%.
So we will see more homes on the market likely next year.
Yeah, we're definitely projecting inventory as well to continue to increase. Probably not quite at the clip it was this year, at least not in every market, right? So a lot of the larger states, Texas, Florida, California, we saw quite notable increases in inventory, some of them as much as 30%. On average, the country, I think right now increased about 25% number of listings over the year. Next year, probably less than that, potentially 10, 15%, I would wager. So, and, that translates to, we're still at relatively sluggish pace in home sales. We're still seeing more inventory. So prices right now are projected to only go up about 2% nationally. But again, we've got these bifurcated markets. So that number will continue to be higher in places like the Northeast, and it'll continue to likely be flatter in places like the South.
And this will continue to be driven based on affordability indexes, because we still have buyers that are unable to have the monthly payments or the down payments available in order to get into the market.
Yeah, and we do project affordability to improve somewhat next year. In some markets, it'll be driven by lower prices, but more broadly, we do think interest rates are going to trend down next year. It's just going to be a relatively slow downward trend. So, we're going into the new year around 6.35%. A lot of projections do right now put us dipping potentially into the high fives by the end of next year. So that kind of gives you an idea of like this slow trend. It's not going from 6.35 to 4.9 next year. That's not the projection. It's maybe 6.35. We get to 5.9 by the end of the year, 5.8, something like that on the more optimistic projections. So again, I think the continued conversation of when you have, buyers who are on the fence, who do have the means right now and are waiting for interest rates, like I think it's an important conversation to have around like how long are you willing to wait, and like how big of a movement do you need to feel good about it.
Yeah. And I think it'll be important to continue to partner with the lenders that are part of the buyer team that can help run those payments, and also to identify at what point is it just not worth it to continue to wait as they're paying the rent to a landlord versus starting to pay their own mortgage. So going into next year, what real estate professionals can do to help is to make sure that consumers understand that that runway might be lengthy to jump over nickels, as opposed to being able to start paying down their own mortgage as a way to build wealth for their families.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's like, we're heading to the end of the year. Everyone's going to be looking at this from a forecasting standpoint for their business next year. I think it's an important time to consider, like, what are your strategies going into next year? And like, we're seeing an improving market, not anything dramatic, but what do you think, as we see the market lift off a little bit next year and we see mortgage rates potentially start to trend down a little bit, what do you think the big strategies are, especially at the beginning of the year, for agents going in to like get their year started right?
Yeah, a lot of times real estate agents know that this is what we call the winter renewal, right? We are going through the connections that we have made of buyers that did not end up purchasing, and we get to reevaluate with them right now what the forecast will hold, so that we can share clear math and data with the buyers, and that we can also explain to them, listen, if this is going to be a runway, now might be a really good time coming out of the holidays to take advantage of an inventory that may be increasing in their area, and being clear on how the payments might be minimally changed, and that the longer we wait, we might be buying into the uncertainty of the future as opposed to knowing what we can afford right now. The great news is, in the first quarter of the year, as folks are jumping into a new fiscal year, that they're not in competition with as many buyers who might wait out the cold or might wait until the snow is melted in order to take advantage of what we end up calling as real estate professionals that spring explosion. And now's the perfect time to create the mini runway to reevaluate over the holidays. Call your buyers and wish them happy holidays, and then take that as an opportunity to ask how you might be able to support them as they head into the next spring to be able to find a home.
Yeah, I think that's a good strategy. I know I bought my house in the winter for the exact reason you highlighted. It's more choices. That was back when we had 2 months of inventory in Austin.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's also the psychological phenomenon that ends up happening at the end of the year that, sellers are aware of. Perhaps sellers have been on the market for some time and they have, been sitting month after month after month. And there are some sellers who have tax reasons, to be able to still close before the end of the year, or who may have a chapter in their life that is preventing them from being able to kick that chapter off unless they sell the property, sell that estate, or end up getting the liquidity back back on that piece of real estate. We want to start communicating that. And the way that we do that is to get really clear on the list of homes that our buyers still intend to keep on the list of the beauty pageant that might win, and to get really clear on when they would like to go see those properties again and help them understand what is needed. And all of this is to say, making sure that we know what their motivation is by when they'd like to be in a home. Right now is the perfect time to connect with our buyers and sellers.
Yeah, absolutely. End of the year, everyone's reevaluating their whole lives, making their New Year's resolutions.
Exactly.
And we want to be part of that conversation.
Exactly.
So I guess to recap, 2025 was fairly similar to 24. One of the big differences being that there was more inventory. We got the Fed meeting that gave us some indication that probably the rate at which we've seen interest rates drop is going to be slowing down some going into next year. But the forecasts for next year are for improvement. We're talking about 5 to 10% increase in home sales. So, some bright side as we go into the next year.
We certainly have some things to look forward to as we step into next year. We are going to be able to communicate with those buyers and sellers that were not able to come to end of job at the end of 2025. And it could be an incredible setup for real estate professionals who know how to clearly communicate the data and who can continue to keep the buyers and sellers educated and under their care.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Ruben, thank you as always for being my ride or die here on the podcast every month. It's certainly been an incredible year for us. And thank you to our audience, too. You have helped us grow immensely this year, and we're glad to have brought to you tremendous value. And we look forward to continuing to do that as we step into 2026.
Until next time.